It is time for another professional match of StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a Zerg versus Protoss played between two of this YouTube channel's favorites. I've noticed that whenever I upload a game, right, with one of these two players in it, people absolutely love watching those videos just because they're usually some of the most entertaining matches in all of StarCraft 2. Now this time around, they are facing off against each other, so I think we should be in for a treat. Spawning here in the bottom right hand corner of Abyssal Reef LE and playing with the beautiful pink Zerg drones. She's from Canada and she goes by the nickname of Scarlett. And her opponent, definitely the very best player from the United States of America. He's playing with the red Protoss probes. He's one of the most accomplished players in all of StarCraft 2 and he goes by the nickname of Neeb. Now, for those of you that maybe don't watch as much StarCraft 2 as myself, and I can imagine that is going to be, quite a few people, because I absolutely adore watching this game, but Neeb essentially ended up winning 3 out of the 4 tournaments last year that would qualify himself for the BlizzCon Grand Finals. So outside of Korea, there were 4 tournaments that if you would end up winning them, you would qualify yourself automatically for the Grand Finals at BlizzCon. And out of the 4 tournaments, Neeb ended up winning 3. Another way you could qualify yourself for the Grand Finals was by accumulating enough points throughout the year, and there's no denying that Neeb also successfully managed to do that. So effectively speaking, Neeb qualified himself for the BlizzCon Grand Finals back in November about 4 times. That's, just in a single year, right? That's just to show you that this man right here is very, very good at what he does. And likewise, Scarlett has been having a great 2018 so far already. She recently managed to qualify herself for the GSL Code S, which is the highest level tournament in South Korea, essentially where the best players in the game reside. But not only that, she managed to actually play very well during her group stage, and she is now in the top 16 of that tournament already, something that a non-Korean hasn't been able to achieve for, I think, like 3 or 4 years or so. It's actually really exciting. I believe the round of 16 is being played in a couple of weeks from now. I will most definitely be updating about that as well on Twitter and on Facebook and whatnot. So if you don't follow me on there already, it's twitter.com/LowkoTV or facebook.com/LowkoTV, because I'll definitely try and update whenever those games are being played and, of course, what the results are going to be as well, though usually I try and not spoil all too much. But regardless, enough fanboying about both of these players. I think it is time to talk about this game. So Scarlett, so far, opening up with a very standard build here. She's gone for a very quick metabolic boost upgrade, and now she's also taking that 3rd hatchery. Now, of course, the reason for this is that she just confirmed that on the other side of the map, there are 2 gateways up already for Neeb. He's actually going to be chrono boosting out 4 adepts here in total. And of course, he's already got that Nexus right here on the low ground, as well as now the Stargate inside of that main base. Neeb is going to be opening up with his beloved Stargate adept playstyle. This is one of the strategies that he ends up playing very, very often in the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, just because it can deal a lot of damage. And here, the first 2 adepts will indeed be shading into that mineral line. They're going to try and pick up a bunch of these drones. Of course, you do want to make sure that you shade out of there in time as well without really taking any kind of critical losses. One of the adepts is running awfully low. Indeed, it will end up dying, but not without a couple of these drones also taken to the grave. 3 workers there in total. Nothing all too crazy, but you do have to keep in mind that not only did these 2 adepts kill a bunch of drones, they also forced out a bunch of Zerglings. Now, apparently, this one right here out on the map will be surrounded as well, just barely ends up dying before it can return to safety. The last of the adepts right now also coming out, and actually some new ones were already produced already, so I guess this would be the 4th one that came out in this particular match. But all things considered, a reasonably fair trade, right? We see a couple of workers go down on one end of the map as well as a bunch of Zerglings, and you can see resource-wise, it's really not that big of a deal. Now, of course, one thing to keep in mind is that we may very well have some mind games at play right here as well. One of the things I've noticed is that at tournaments, Neeb and Scarlett will hang out all the time, and I'm sure that means as well that they will be talking about strategies as well as the Zerg versus Protoss matchup quite regularly, but I'm sure they don't quite want to tell each other the exact strategy that they don't like playing or they do like playing right now, right? There's definitely going to be mind games that both of these players are trying to pull off against each other. Like, for example, we see a rather late Spore Crawlers there, all things considered for Scarlett. Maybe Neeb told her that he hasn't really been liking the Oracle play very much recently, and he's been opening up a lot more with, for example, Phoenixes, which is very common at this stage in the meta of StarCraft 2, but it's always important to try and keep that one in mind as well, because even though we don't have insight in any of that information, it most definitely makes a big difference when playing these games. Although I don't know actually how often they will talk about StarCraft 2 in general. Regardless though, we do see now Neeb committing to quite a couple of these adepts. There are, at this point in the game, 8 out on a map. There's only 6 Zerglings as well as a bunch of queens. Now of course the Shades can just simply go past those queens that were on hold position, and they're going to be trying to see if they can potentially commit there at the 3rd base location. Apparently Neeb in the last second there decided that he didn't want to take the risk. Now he's going to be shading up to the main base instead. I think he's going to commit here. Here we go. The adepts are going to try and pick off as many of those units as they possibly can. The drones is what is the most important part. So far, no drones have really gone down just yet, but here we go. The target firing is on point. A couple of these workers end up dying, but not all too much just yet. But this is where things get very scary. Not only do we have adepts in the main right now, we also see some here at the 3rd base location. 8 drones going down already, 10 in total right now. Bring that up to 12, 13, and I think that just barely, indeed 15 will go down now, with now also the Oracle joining in. So in total at this point, 19 workers have fallen. And while this is all going on, right, Neeb has already got this 3rd base up and running. He's been playing this absolutely brilliantly so far, because this is going to be a very difficult scenario to come back from. There's no denying that right now the momentum of this game is in favor of the Protoss player. Scarlett apparently, now that she has indeed been knocked back to a very small amount of workers. I mean, losing 19 at this point is massive, right? Imagine if she would be all the way up to like 84 right now. That would be a dominating lead compared to the 64 right now that we see for the Protoss, but that's not the case. And Neeb apparently, wait, what did it just do? Wait, did he just misclick? I think he must have accidentally misclicked right there. I think he probably meant to hit a chrono boost, but he must have accidentally used the wrong ability there. Nothing all too crazy, but he just mass recalled the units that were right next to the Nexus. Not entirely sure what went down there. Regardless though, apparently Scarlett is going to follow this up right now with an infestation pit. That could of course be infestors. It could be a quick hive, although, oh, look at that production tab. Wait. 9 swarm host? Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, I think this is gonna be for, like, quick Vipers or maybe quick Brute Lords or anything along those lines. Apparently, Scarlett has realized that she is behind, and now she is gonna go for 15 Swarm Hosts. Now, just for those of you that maybe don't play a lot of StarCraft or haven't watched a lot recently, Swarm Hosts aren't really being played in Zerg vs. Protoss at all. The reason for Swarm Hosts not being played very much is that, well, they're not particularly good at taking out straight-up engagements. On this map, though, we do sometimes see Zerg players trying to land some of the units, or some of the locus, rather, that the Swarm Hosts fly across through this, like, crevice over here towards the natural. But still, what if Protoss just simply goes for a counterattack? It feels like this is a very risky move to make, because at this point, the rest of the army is 7 roaches and 3 Zerglings. The cooldown that all of these Swarm Nodes have is absolutely massive, but here, apparently, the locusts do fly across that little crevice, and they're gonna try and see whatever damage they can do. Now, the single Phoenix is trying its very best to help out as much as possible. A couple of probes do end up dying here, but that Nexus will fall very rapidly. The damage output of Locust is absolutely ridiculous, but I think it is just barely not going to be enough right now for the Zerg player in pink. At the same time, though, Protoss is doing exactly what I predicted here. He's just simply going to try and move across the map. The thing is, these Swarmos are mostly going to be on cooldown. A couple of them will be able to spew their Locust forth as well, but of course, these units are very tanky, and they're pretty good at stopping this attack wave as well. Neeb is going to try and use those force fields too to try and to simply prevent these roaches from closing in the distance, but I think that Scarlett, somehow, some way, has managed to actually buy herself a lot of time, right? And that's a big deal. She's managed to buy herself a lot of time, and usually this is all you really need. Right, you can just rebuild drones if they die early on. It's just that your opponent gets a massive amount of momentum behind him. Although, you do have to be careful. You cannot lose these swarm hosts lightly. Couple of them now already going down. They're actually now floating towards the surface here of the Abyssal Reef. Scarlett just simply try to keep the back of the swarm host alive as well by throwing up a couple more locusts of reinforcing swarm hosts. But this is very unconventional. Very unconventional indeed, and Scarlett has been using this time to just simply build up towards 5 base economy. Gotta hand it so far as well down to Neeb. He's playing this very slow. He's making sure that he doesn't take any risks, and he's just simply building up his own economy as well. He's now got 4 bases already pretty much fully saturated right as that 4th Nexus finishes. He does need to be careful though. Cannot go ahead and just lose a bunch of these Archon. They're very important to keep alive, but the longer this goes on, right, the more these swarm hosts will indeed be deflected. I mean, they are very supply heavy, but so far these locusts are doing quite a little bit of damage already. Neeb actually forced to now split up some of these units, realizing that Zerg cannot really engage very easily towards both of these angles. Right now though, roaches are gonna try and engage against a bunch of these immortals as well as archons. At the same time, the locusts are going down at the 4th base location. The Nexus falls very, very rapidly. Of course, the amount of damage that these locusts deals is absolutely ridiculous, and apparently this will trigger a counterattack right now by the Protoss player. Now the supply counts, right, they are heavily in favor of the Zerg right now, but don't let that fool you. Both roaches as well as swarm hosts are some of the most supply heavy units in the game. Swarm hosts, of course, 3 supply each, roaches 2 supply. It means that this army of Zerg is not nearly as big as it looks like. Couple of Hydras now also spawning, a beautiful force field at the very least preventing some of these units from getting in there. The 4th base now also, or rather the 5th base of the Zerg, will go down. Locusts are trying to engage off against this Archon Immortal Ball, and they're doing so reasonably effectively so far. Of course though, the reinforcements of Protoss have now arrived, and they're gonna be able to start plowing through the amount of Zerg that is available at this point in the game. This little choke here, man, if there was one force field available, that could be the end of that game right there, if those units were prevented from moving up that ramp. But it looks like after Neeb kills a base, he's gonna be forced at the very least to retreat and regroup his units. Slowly though, all of the swarm hosts that are out on this map are being replaced with more valuable units, like for example the Hydralisk. Already 33 Hydras are out at this point in the game. Of course, Hydras are great against pretty much everything that is available for this Protoss player right here. I'm actually wondering where this will go, right? Neeb picking it up very smartly. He's just simply gonna go for another base right now. And I would actually like to see like a big like Sky Protoss switch, right? Like, imagine a mothership with this. It would make it so difficult for the Locust to do any kind of damage, although he does need to be careful that he doesn't overextend. Like, for example, this single Immortal, I mean, it's brave, don't get me wrong, but if he gets caught out on the map with his army like that, it can definitely spell disaster very rapidly. But look at that, right? The target firing right here on these Immortals, so beautiful. Stalkers at the same time apparently also trying to engage, although one of them ends up dying and floating to the surface here of the Abyssal Reef. The splitting of these units is very smart though. Neeb trying to make sure that these units don't really get the surface area. Once again though, it looks like we're making ourselves up for a massive engagement. All of these Zerg units are caught in this really awkward tight choke. Neeb is trying to pummel his way through right now, but I think there's just too many Hydralisk, as Hydras of course can absolutely shred through this unit composition if there is no splash damage available here for the Protoss player. And speaking of splash, we do indeed now see that switch coming in. The High Templar were being morphed in. We now even see the Fleet Beacon being produced, as well as the Templar Archives researching Psionic Storm. I love that decision. I think it's very smart. I would even like to see Colossus at this point, because of course Colossus deal bonus damage to light, which is what all of these Hydralisk are going to be. At the same time though, we see Zerg now transitioning towards the Lurker Den. The Hive is just about to finish as well. Lurkers can actually be another one of those units, kind of similar in a way as Swarm Hosts, I suppose, but they're another one of those units that buy a lot of time, and I feel like that's what Scarlett is achieving with these units that she's going for right now. I highly doubt that she meant to close out the game with the Swarm Host. I mean, that just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But she is capable of buying a lot of time with the Swarm Host to build back up her economy. Right, and at this point, while we do only see 62 drones, which I'll be honest, is not a whole lot for a Zerg, she now has a bigger army supply than the Protoss player. And at this point, there's only 7, or actually, no, there's only a single Swarm Host. Okay, well, make that 0. There's no more Swarm Host available. So the army supply counts right now actually do mean quite a bit. These Lurkers, though, They can be put on hold fire. It looks like Scarlett has decided she's not going to go ahead and do that. There are a lot of storms now available as well. Fleet Beacon was produced already. We see now additional Stargates coming in as well, but here we go. Protoss wants to engage here. Neeb wants to try and see if he can end this game right here, right now, but Scarlett is not allowing it. Massive storm going down, though, dealing damage here to a lot of these Hydras, although only a single one ends up dying there. We do now also see the Advanced Talents upgrade right there coming up for the Lurkers, which allows them to burrow significantly quicker. Very nicely played, and actually a single Observer now aiding these Stalkers and preventing this creep from really being spread out too far. Wonderful play here, actually, by both players. I mean, the early game was heavily in favor of Protoss, but Zerg has desperately clawed her way back into this game. Great Aspire now being produced. We see 10 cannons also going down. Considering Neeb has got a lot of excess minerals, he may as well go ahead and pull off something like that so he can start replacing some of those, you know, low tier units with some of the higher tier ones instead. Here indeed we do see a big Zealot run by as Neeb is trying to open up supply to potentially go for, I would imagine, carriers or maybe even Tempest. Both would be pretty good, of course, against this Brute Lord play that is going to be coming up in just a little bit. But indeed we do see the Tempest now being produced. Dark Shrine also coming up. Neeb though is going to try and push forward. He's not done just yet. At the same time, the Stalkers have managed to figure out a way to make their way into that natural location. The Immortals though, they're going to be able to just simply target fire down the hatchery. Look at it. Look at the amount of damage that these units deal to structures. It's ridiculous. 7 drones going down. A couple of Stalkers ended up dying as well, but I think that's a worthwhile trade for a relatively small cost. And actually, like right now, right, the amount of Immortals here can absolutely shred this army to bits. The Brute Lords though, they're just about to finish. And look at this force here, right? None of these units really shoot up very effectively whatsoever. Neeb can see the cocoons there, but another base ends up dying before he will be forced away. That was beautiful decision making right there by Neeb. Sure, he's going to end up losing a couple of these Immortals. I hope he's not going to lose every single one of them for his sake, because usually that's not going to be all too helpful either. But, you know, the Immortals sort of fall off once the Zerg starts switching towards a primarily Hydra and air-based army. And he's got 2 bases there for his troubles, right? Effectively knocking back the economy of Scarlett to the Stone Age. Now, of course, the Mothership is available here as well. These Brute Lords, I mean, they're going to try and deal some damage, but where are they going to show or throw their Locust? I mean, of course, some of these buildings can be seen, but, I mean, the majority of this army is just simply going to be cloaked, as there are no, there's no detection here available for the Zerg player just yet. And Neeb is going to buy himself a bunch more time to start to transition to watch 5 Stargates producing all of these carriers. It's actually really cool. This is a high-level match. Both players trying to outsmart each other. The Swarm House switch was very unexpected, and I think that Neeb had to think about that for just a little bit as well, but there's no denying that he still managed to get a very solid amount of economy out, right? I mean, he's already at 80 plus workers. Once again, though, a big engagement. The Hydras are trying their very best to close out this game right here, right now. They're trying to pick up all of these little interceptors, so hopefully that will prevent these Brute Lords from dying, but Scarlett has realized it as well. Her economy was not nearly as big as the economy right here for the Protoss. I mean, Neeb took it rather slow and steady there, right? I mean, I said there for a second that maybe he didn't really know exactly what he should do against Swarm Hosts, but now in retrospect, right, while we're looking back at this game, it seemed like he knew exactly what to do. Right, he had a group of mobile Stalkers trying to prevent any Swarm Hosts from sneaking out. He split up his Archon Immortal Bolt to make sure that he could prevent any units from really throwing up the Locust towards the other expansions. And then once he started up the transition towards a carrier-based army, and he recognized that his opponent was gonna be going for a Brute Lord-based force, he just simply decided to throw away most of the units that he didn't need anymore. Like, for example, the Immortals, but of course not give them away. Instead, take out 2 other bases of the Zerg in the process. Buy himself a bunch of time with the Mothership, and eventually, you know, get an army here that would just simply hard counter the one of the Zerg. It was actually brilliantly played there by Neeb. Very well done. Now, of course, a little bit of unfortunate play there for Scarlett. I don't think she meant to lose. I think she lost about, I don't know, like 19 workers, I think is what it was in the earliest stages of the game. That is honestly unacceptable. That may just be due to the fact that, you know, mind games can indeed come into play. Neeb did a great job just simply denying that that scouting information. And all of a sudden, like 12 or so adepts showed up. Knock, knock, who's here? it's the adepts, right? If you blink twice, all of a sudden all your drones are gone, and that's kind of what ended up happening there. Neeb, even though he was only there for about 20 seconds or so with the adepts, they ended up absolutely massacring that mineral line. And while Scarlett wasn't quite out of the game just yet, then the Swarm Host switch did absolutely brilliantly when it comes to buying time. She was never quite back. And this is like not something we talk about a whole lot, but she never really quite got that momentum back, right? Momentum was never quite on her side. Sure, she bought a bunch of time, but she didn't really have a massive economy. And while sure she tried building up more and more economy, Neeb just seemed to be in utter control and just simply was leading this match very, very nicely. What a beautiful game. I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright, and I will see you all in the next one.